Hey everyone, how you doing today? Excited about some new research that I'm learning. And my name is Mike, by the way. I am founder of the Inner Advantage Method and the Relating Renaissance and the Altogether Academy. Three things that are all in one. But my wife and I are starting to play this game today based on some research and some tools that I'm learning and combining from some other things that I've been working with for quite some time. And I've talked in the past about dopamine, and I've talked about the relationship to dopamine and addiction, and the relationship to dopamine and I don't mean just addiction to like major things like drugs. I mean addiction on a day-to-day basis to things like Facebook and such. But one of the things that I have long been thinking about with dopamine is that dopamine is actually not responsible for happiness. Dopamine is not happiness. Dopamine is not actually the reward. Dopamine is the pleasure that we get for seeking the reward, the pleasure that we get for desiring the reward, so that we will want to go out and do things that are then satisfying. And the neurochemicals for happiness, for satisfaction, are more like things like serotonin and oxytocin and things like that. So let me give you an example. So if I have dopamine, if I'm in a cozy cave, look about our potential evolutionary biology. Of course, this is just a theory of mine. But if I'm in a cave and it's cold and it's wet and I'm like, but there's no food. I need to go get food. So dopamine is that motivation that has me go, yeah, I'm going to go do it. It's going to feel good. I'm motivated. I get pleasure from going to seek the reward. Okay. And so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to go up and do it, and I'm going to get out, and I'm going to get out, and I'm going to move my body, and I'm going to exercise, and I'm going to wrestle through things, and I'm going to hike, and I'm going to be seeking and stalking an animal, and then I'm going to hunt, and I'm going to have challenges, and I'm going to overcome them, and I'm going to exert myself, and it's going to be it's going to be a challenging, exhilarating process. There's going to be ups and downs, and then I'm going to succeed, and then I'm going to carry the animal home, and I'm going to bring it home, and I'm going to bring it back to the cave, and then we're going to cook it up, and I'm going to be with my family, and there's going to be a warm stew and a fire, and everyone's happy, and everyone feels safe, and everyone's cozy, and everyone's warm. That's the satisfaction. That's the reward. That's not dopamine. That stuff is serotonin, oxytocin, etc. But what happens in a lot of times in modern culture is we're getting stuck on the dopamine loop. We're doing things that are not intrinsically satisfying, that don't require us going through an effort and a process to succeed at something so that we feel true satisfaction. We get dopamine from getting a like on Facebook. We get dopamine when we check our email. We get dopamine when we watch TV, when we watch Netflix. We get dopamine when we watch porn. We get dopamine when we, yada 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 yada. When we eat junk food. Dopamine, 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 but there's no satisfaction in it. Yet what happens is that we get stuck in just the craving cycle. Think about the song Constant Craving, right? There's no satisfaction there. But then another problem, and this is the new part that I'm learning about, is what is called the dopamine, the pain and pleasure balance. And every time we do something that we think will bring us pleasure, or we do something that will be kind of trying to avoid the discomfort or pain or boredom or monotony, whatever it is, whether check our Facebook, whatever, then that gives us a hit of dopamine, and there's pleasure in that. But actually, simultaneously, it activates a pain principle, because evolutionarily, when we had dopamine, we also wanted to simultaneously activate a pain principle so that we felt the pain of wanting to move and get up out of our situation and go do something about it. But what is happening in a modern setting is, because we're not getting up and going, we're not using dopamine as a motivation to get up and go necessarily. A lot of the times, what we're doing is we are activating this pleasure principle, dopamine, and then activating the pain principle. What happens is we're getting stuck, and what happens is we're becoming attenuated to the dopamine, so that we need more dopamine in order to feel the pleasure. Have you noticed? You need more shows, the next video, the next email, more likes, more chocolate. It never satisfies. But at the same time, what we're doing is activating more of the pain principle. So we're actually creating more pain. So then our solution, so we think, is more pleasure. And then we're getting stuck in this pain pleasure loop, this pain pleasure loop, this pain pleasure loop. And eventually the system fizzles out and we end up getting depressed, overwhelmed, burnt out, exhausted, anxious, angry. We act actually like addicts about our day-to-day lives and little things that we think we need. So what we're doing is learning about how to stop that seeking, that compulsion to just do things subconsciously, automatically, reach for that phone, reach for that snack, reach for that thing that is actually not about hunger. It's not about true pleasure. It's not about true enjoyment. It's not about satisfaction. It's not about happiness. It's actually about a dopamine addiction. And, check out a book called Dopamine Nation. I'm learning some of this stuff from a podcast called the Huberman Lab. And so there's great resources out there for this. But the point is that it's actually the Huberman Lab and Dr. Huberman that said I heard one little snippet in one of his podcasts where he says he counts 25 times a day where he says no to something that is going to be a little dopamine hit. And he says no to it. And so because the way that we reset this pain pleasure balance so that we aren't just in this situation where we need so much more dopamine to even feel anything, but really we're feeling flat and numb and bored and tired and anxious and cranky. But at the same time, the pain is going up and we're not really feeling happy. We're not really feeling satisfied. We have a neurochemical problem going on. And in order to reset it, we need to be willing to say no to those things and feel, he says this, we need to be able to feel the boredom and the anxiety. So when you go and you're about to check your email, even though you don't really need to, and you say no, you're going to feel that there's a feeling of anxiety and boredom. And we need to go through that. And we need to go through that consistently until it's reset. So my wife and I are doing this thing where we're tallying 25 times a day where we say no to the pleasure principle so that we can reduce the pain principle and we can reset our nervous systems so that we have a more healthy relationship with things that can bring us genuine pleasure, that can boost our real motivation, that can not have us distracted from the things that we really want to pursue that will bring real long-term health and happiness to ourselves as individuals, to ourselves as a couple, to our family, to the world, to the people that we serve, etc. So join us and do this tally of 25. I'm on number 11 already for today. I've done 11 times where I've said no, and just sit and just feel it. And if you surf the wave, this is a concept from dialectical behavioral therapy, DBT. If you surf that feeling like I gotta do it, it will only last for 90 seconds to 3 minutes. The craving, if you do not feed it, if you do not fuel it, now that does not mean sit there, think about the thing and think about the thing and think about the thing. It will not go away if you do that. But if you say no and then you just get into your body sensations and just feel the aliveness in your body, it's gonna feel intense. If you feel that aliveness and that intensity, just the sensations in your body, maybe you feel your breath, maybe you release muscular physical tension, maybe you shake it out a little bit or stretch or do something like that, the urge will not last more than 90 seconds to 3 minutes. So surf the urge, let it go, let it pass, and then move on with your day with more free choice and less compulsion. All right, so shoot a comment. Let us know if you're going to play. We're going to be playing, and we're going to be resetting our pleasure pain principle. We're going to be reestablishing a healthy relationship with dopamine, which is going to enable us to pursue things that are going to produce much more long-lasting, sustainable, organic, natural health and happiness chemicals, and contributing a lot more to ourselves, our family, and the world. All right. Love you all. Have a beautiful day. Let me know if you have any questions.